It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, March 29th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this fabulous Tuesday? We've got coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, looking into the Old Testament timeline, and thoughts of the week on attitude and behavior of brides. All right, everyone, how are you guys doing today? Yes, it is Tuesday. Monday is officially over, and I'm sure all of us are super happy about this. I hope you guys are super enjoying your week. Thankful that you guys have joined us here on the Morning Star Drive. Keep liking, commenting. Want to hear from you guys, see how you're doing. Let's build this community for English Providence speakers. And, more than anything else, joining us here, one of the biggest reasons why I started this Morning Star Drive podcast, I actually started at the wrong time. Because remember, I started 2 years ago on March 16th. March 16th, we listened to the message, I get super inspired. I was like, okay, we've got to do something. And then on that day, March 16th, I began this podcast, and it was uploaded for the next day, March 17th, right? Now, here's the thing. The reason why it was such bad timing, but good timing at the same time it was bad timing because it was made for people going to work. It was made for people commuting to school, right? It's made for family. It's kind of like a radio show where, in the world, you have so many of these worldly shows going on, but the substance doesn't really fit like Providence people, right? And I made this so that career, campus, going to school, or families, they're at home or they're cleaning the house or they're doing other things that, families do, but they need something to get away. But it's also wholesome enough for Providence people talking about the word and stuff like that too, right? So we can learn and have fun at the same time. But the reason it was a bad thing is because it was during the pandemic and everyone was work from home, so no one's going to be listening to this in their cars, right? No one's going to listen to this as they commute. So I was like, I never thought about that, but it was really, really bad timing. Now, the good timing is all of a sudden I'm stuck, right? I'm stuck in a room. I'm stuck inside. And, we save so much time doing, from traveling and getting ready to go out. And now, from the time we started, staying inside the church, from that time, the cool part was, we only had to be half ready, right? So you could take a shower and only on your top half of your body, and you'll just be on Zoom, but no one sees that you're wearing shorts, right? So it was, it's kind of like you saved a ton of time, but it also made us realize that there's so much time to be done. So with all this time I just began this podcast. So it was good and bad, but I'd say overall, since we're already on like episode 531, it's been great. So I'm super grateful and thankful. Now, I want to share a dream with you guys I had like 2 days ago. Okay, I had this really, really weird dream. I've been thinking about like, what the heck does it mean? So what happened was so everyone, you guys know I'm a face star, right? So in the dream, I was going to the blessing, right? That's already weird, right? Give me a second. I'm having a sip of my latte. Okay, so in the dream, I'm going to the blessing. But while in the blessing, I couldn't find a match, okay? Then I went to God and I was like, oh, so what? So am I still a star, right? And it was silence. Like God said nothing to me. And it was really, really awkward. Like I was in a place that was in the middle. You know what I mean? So I was like, what the heck does that dream mean, right? Like, obviously it doesn't mean I'm getting married. It's not a physical dream, but it's a very spiritual dream, right? And I was thinking about what the heck does that mean? And the more and more I thought about it, I realized, well, actually, this was 3 days ago probably, but the more and more I thought about it, I realized it has to do with, have you guys ever thought about this? Is like when we're in Providence, or sometimes when you're not doing as well in Providence, like you just kind of go with the flow, see if it works or not. And if it works, you're okay with it. But if it doesn't work, like, oh, okay, then I guess I'm going to just do like stuff for God instead. It's almost like you have no definite plan of exactly what you're going to do. And you just kind of ride with things. And then at the end, if it doesn't work out, you'll just take the other option. And the thing I thought to myself was, wow, that's quite interesting because, we're here coming, this week's message is about purpose. Like, you have to have that set purpose, but know it and understand it so deeply. But at the individual level too, there's got to be that purpose that we're running towards. Right? It's not something where you're just kind of in the middle. Because think about this. How sad is it? It's like, yeah, I could be a phase star. Well, I'll be a phase star only if I don't get matched in the blessing. And that's kind of weird, right? Because then that totally diminishes both sides. It makes both sides not as valuable, right? And I realized in coming to Providence and believing in this history, it's the same thing. It's not about, let's see how this history goes. Oh, let's see how this slander goes. That's not it. It's you're all in or you're not, or you're stuck in the middle. And it reminds me of that verse in Revelations about being lukewarm, right? What verse was that in Revelations that says, do not be lukewarm? It's in Revelation chapter 3:16. Oh, 3:16, guys. Revelations 3:16. Because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth, right? And it's kind of like, I realize even more, it's like, oh, that's so true. Because imagine someone's getting married, but you're kind of like the second option, and I couldn't get married to anyone else, so I'm marrying you. Like that, for me, it'd be like, then I don't even want to marry you. Like, I'll just spit you right out, because even if you're the last person on earth, what a way to get married. Oh, I tried everyone else, but no one else wanted me, so I'm going to come to you. That is like a slap in the face. And I realize us too, our mentality has to change, where, we're not just waiting for oh, let's see what happens with this slander. Oh, let's see what happens with Providence. Oh, let's see what people say about it. No, you're in or you're out. If you've realized if you've received the Holy Spirit, then you've received the Holy Spirit, and you go forward and you're like, yeah, this is the history of God. And, I really, really thought to myself how many times have we kind of not trusted in God, at an individual level, trying to make a choice, but you're going to only make your choice. And if your choice doesn't work out, then you'll flip back to God's side and say, oh yeah, well, God, this didn't work out, so I'll do what you said. And that's kind of it makes God secondary, a side piece, or not a side piece, sorry, a side dish, right? Not the main, he's a side dish, right? It's oh, I've had too much of this steak. Oh, let me get some of these carrots. Do you know what I mean? So I really thought about this dream, and I hope it's something that you guys can think about too. Drop it in the comments if you've ever had that moment too, where you're kind of you're not fully in, but you're not fully in, kind of thing, right? But tell me what you guys think about that dream, or what you guys thought about the dream too. All right. New talk on Thursday. So in 2 days, we have a new video on the Espresso with Sky channel. Guys, the channel's growing. I'm really happy right now. It seems like, in the beginning when I started Espresso with Sky, this is kind of cool, is I started with kind of just motivational talks and, how to live life properly. And then I did some vlogs on why I like Malaysia and stories, funny stories and stuff. And then I finally said, you know what, let me just do all spiritual. So what happened was I got to around 3,100, and that came mainly from my my talks, my vlogs on Malaysia and my funny stories and stuff, right? And someone was telling me, it's yeah, if you switch to religious, you're gonna lose a lot of fans, because some people are not there for the religious stuff. They're there only for the funny stuff that you gave them before. I was like, oh, that's so true. So we were expecting. I was looking at the subscribers, and yeah, it's true. We did start losing subscribers. Sometimes we'd have -10, sometimes, but we'd always gain and lose at the same time. So it was always stagnant. But right now it feels like we've kind of overcome that hump, where now we're reaching that point where we're actually figuring out oh, this is, now we're starting to find our audience, and the people that wanted to leave are leaving. And now only the people that are coming are growing. So now over the last 2 weeks, it's kind of just steadily going up bit by bit by bit. So I'm super happy about the channel. I'm thankful for all of you guys out there that are really supporting us too. Okay. Remember last Sunday edition, the artist series with Somebody Boys? Go ahead, check that one out, guys. Really fun. Alone I Pray. How did they come up with this song? What was the inspiration? How did God lead them? So go ahead, check that out. It's always a fun interview with the Somebody Boys. So go ahead, check that one out for the Sunday edition artist series. Okay. So let's get this show started with the featured artist of the day. We got member artists from all around the world. We're going to start on this awesome Tuesday with the MSD Boys from America with Alone I Pray. We just did their artist series. Go ahead, check it out. Great song. You guys are going to love this. It's so awesome, right? So we're going to start off the featured artist of the day, MSD Boys from America, Alone I Pray. And then we'll go into the Rapture Collective from Australia with All My Thanks and Love. And then we'll end things off with Zeniac from the Paper Music Associates in Korea with Star Launcher.
Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. No, I'm not slipping through. No, I'm not falling down. The only thing that's falling's my knees on the floor. I'm praying, Lord, will you give me strength? Lord, will you give me power? I can't do this myself, so bless me in the morning hours. All the demons test me, but they will never shake me. If I pray, they hate me. If I pray, you love me. Connected with you's the only thing that matters. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. While I'm praying on my knees, I trust you with all my heart. For you always come through. For myself, for my family, for myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through.
I pray to never just settle for good when great is available. Who's the mastermind behind this mind? I give all the credit to God, that's why I'm back. They mad that I made it, I know that the Satans, they hate it. I keep working hard just to make progress. Now I'm on 10, trust the process, ayy. Look at my efforts lately, I'm setting conditions daily. I'm praying on my knees, so bless me. Please bless me, please bless me. Tribulations always come and go, I will never stop, just always know. Your focus determines reality, stay solid, that's why I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart. For you to always come through. For myself, for my family, on myself alone I pray.
Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through.
SB.
Yeah, welcome to God's new history. Daily preaching, the Bible no longer a mystery. Saving lives, taking action, what a wonderful destiny. Working tirelessly and we can become heavenly. All I ever wanted for you is to see we can become one with the Trinity. A condition was set by His highest. Confess and pray, create a new mindset. If you follow until the end, I promise you, you will surely realize God's divineness.
He's divine, y'all. Alpha and Omega, He's divine. Yeah. So let's reflect on the past. You gotta look deeply at the things God has done. Salvation at the highest has been granted. That's a blessing of blessings, the Lord's mandate. Spring water that heals faster than a band-aid. COVID safe cause His eyes was on us like a magnet. Got the seal on our foreheads, yet they can't do nothing. The devil and his gang have been disbanded.
So I raise my praise to you. So I lift my hands up high. Even
night vigil. Lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Lord's word is my perspective, the righteous collective. Filtering pollution, being mentally selective. Guarding the heart, it's a protective. Do it in a new way, in spirit and physicality. Do it in a new way, take it higher, raise a level. Giving God glory, God's love is the story. So rich in His love, feeling like a rich miser. Love is exploding like a geyser. Love so contagious, spread across the world like Pfizer. Antidote of the nation.
Reflect on the past, you gotta look deeply at the things God has done. Salvation at the highest has been granted, that's a blessing of blessings, the Lord's mandate. Spring water that heals faster than a band-aid. Covered safe cause His eyes was on us like a magnet. Got the seal on our foreheads, yet they can't do nothing. The devil and his gang have been disbanded.
So I raise my praise to You. So I lift my hands up high. Even in my weakness, even in my struggles, I'll always give my thanks and love. All my thanks and love.
Okay.
Should be. Unknown omega star appeared along the axis of space and time. Welcome back and stay for a new language of eternity. On a golden mega structure built, you put all the worlds, let there be light. In a moment of a celestial miracle. Stars were fired from the temple you missed for so long. Collisions occur greatly from now on. Get ready for a rendezvous. I see the blue shifted light from you. In a moment of a celestial miracle. Never
And that was Zeniac from PMA in Korea with Star Launcher. Before that, we had Rapture Collective from Australia with All My Thanks and Love. And of course, the feature arts of the day, Somebody Boys from America. They just did their Sunday edition artist series on this song, Alone I Pray. All right, so let's get into some news going on around the world. And of course, coronavirus updates. We are going to be closing this section by the end of this week. And next week, we'll no longer have these numbers because I just don't think it's necessary anymore. The numbers are so low at the moment. You know, if they start like, if another pandemic breaks out, of course, we'll go into it. But I don't think we're going to be doing it. Even for us over here in Canada, starting April 8th, like we don't have masks anymore, right? But starting April 8th, April 8th in Canada means they don't even check for vaccines. There's not even a vaccine check anywhere you go. So, you know, it's pretty normalized here. And you'll see from the numbers too, Canada's very, very low in deaths and infection rates too. So in the world, since the beginning of the pandemic, there have been 482.5 million cases with over 6.14 million deaths. And that's a 1.27% mortality rate, which basically means of all the cases, only like 1% are actually dying from it, okay? Top 5 countries going by daily death rates. Russia on top, 338 deaths with 23,000 cases in a single day. Korea is in second, 282 deaths with 318,000 cases. Germany in third with 190 deaths and 80,000 cases. Hong Kong in fourth with 151 deaths and 8,000 cases. And then the Philippines jumps back into the top 5 with 131 deaths and 328,000 cases in a single day. And as you can see, numbers are crazy low. They're super low, right? So when we look at that, it's a good sign. Like even Korea, even though they have 318,000 cases, they're less than 1% mortality rate. Philippines is even smaller than that, right? I think it's like 0.5 or something along that line. North America, where I'm at right now, Mexico's on top, 101 deaths with 2,900 cases. And then the US in second with 48 deaths and 4,900 cases. And then Canada, 4 deaths and 2,200 cases. And that's kind of how you can see why in North America in general, all these rules are relaxing and it's going to be pretty much normalized. I would say within the next 2 to 3 months, everything's going to be normalized. Okay, so let's take a look at the top 3 news when it comes to world news. And of course, Russia-Ukraine is the big one because we're praying about this and we're making sure that when we pray, we are informed and know exactly what is happening. So let's kind of get a breakdown of what's going on. We've already passed the 1 month mark. What are the things that we missed over the last day? Ukraine says it will not open humanitarian corridors from its cities on Monday due to warnings of Russia provocations on routes. So corridors had been set up to allow civilians to leave some towns that are surrounded by Russian forces. And meanwhile, in Mariupol, the mayor said the besieged port city is on the verge of catastrophe and must be completely evacuated. President Vladimir Zelensky has also said that Ukraine is prepared to discuss adopting a neutral status as part of a peace deal. But he says it would have to go to a referendum and be guaranteed by third parties. And his comments come in an interview with independent Russian journalists, prompting a warning from the state media regulator in Moscow. And of course, the next round of face-to-face negotiations between Ukraine and Russia will take place in Turkey this week. So they already did it yesterday, and there's going to be more happening this week too. So in bigger news when it comes to Ukraine, the G7, like the 7 richest countries in the world, have rejected Putin's demand to pay for Russian energy in rubles. Leaders of the world's 7 richest nations have rejected Moscow's demand to pay for energy imports from Russia in rubles, according to Germany's energy minister. The G7 nations are France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, US, and Canada. And basically, they told reporters it was a clear breach of the existing contracts and also said that payment in rubles is not acceptable and they will urge the companies affected not to follow Putin's demands. The Russian president announced last week that Russia wanted unfriendly countries pay for natural gas only in Russian currency from now on, and economists said the move appeared designed to try to support the ruble. Now, the ruble has collapsed against other currencies since Putin invaded Ukraine on February 24th, and Western countries responded with far-reaching sanctions against Moscow. Okay, and also Russia is planning retaliatory visa measures So Moscow is developing measures to restrict entry into Russia for nationals of unfriendly countries, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said. The state news agency TASS quoted him as saying the measures would respond to unfriendly actions by the United States and its satellites, including illegitimate sanctions and decisions that infringe on the rights of Russian citizens and legal entities. It did not specify which countries the measures would apply to, but the government has previously approved a list of states and territories that commit unfriendly sanctions against Russia, its companies, and citizens. The list includes the US, Canada, EU, UK, Ukraine, Switzerland, Norway, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and several others. So that's kind of the update on the Russia-Ukraine crisis, right? Let's go over to Israel. Israel, partnership with the Arab League allies will deter Iran. So Israel Foreign Minister says deepening ties with friendly countries from the Arab League will first and foremost help counter the threat from Iran. And he was speaking after a summit held in Israel for the first time with top diplomats from Arab League countries and the U.S. Three of them, the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco, formed ties with Israel only in 2020. The foreign ministers pledged to continue to develop the partnership, and the Arab League diplomats, along with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Egypt's foreign minister, also reiterated their support for a peaceful solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, all back the creation of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel as part of that, something Israel Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has ruled out. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry called the summit a harsh attack against the Palestinian people, although it did not directly accuse the Arab League participants, the Times of Israel reported. Now, after the meeting on Monday morning, Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid said the delegates had agreed to make the event a permanent forum. And they said, what we are doing here is making history, building a new regional architecture based on progress, technology, religious tolerance, and security and intelligence cooperation. The new architecture, the shared capabilities we are building, intimidates and deters common enemies, first and foremost Iran and its proxies. So the Israel-U.S. talks took place at a time of growing Israeli fears that the U.S. is on the brink of signing a new agreement with Iran to curb its nuclear program in return for an end to crippling U.S.-led sanctions. And it's also concerned that the U.S. will remove Iran's powerful Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, the IRGC, from its list of terrorist groups as part of a new nuclear deal. So former U.S. President Donald Trump pulled out of the 2015 global nuclear agreement with Iran and restored sanctions in a move which led Iran to significantly advance its nuclear activities, which had been barred by the accord. Now, Israel says it believes a new deal will be weaker than the previous one and enable Iran to intensify its military activities across the region. So it sounds kind of scary, but it's a great thing that Israel is now working together with the Arab Leagues and they've always been in, not in fear, but they've been in war, right, together with against the Palestinians. So this is to help them in their safety. Who is on the right side, and that's not for us to decide, but it's only for us to pray about. Last but not least, this was a quite interesting thing, guys. This is not even world news. This was just shocking. It came in the news everywhere. For those of you guys who know, the Oscars were yesterday, and guess what? I think no one watches them anymore. But there's this one scene that went viral like crazy. You guys know Will Smith, right? Will Smith, the actor and singer or rapper, whatever it was. He basically hits Chris Rock on the stage. Like, he literally hits him. It wasn't even a joke. He literally hit him in the face. So what happened? Right? So Chris Rock is a comedian, and he makes a joke about his wife. Okay? And basically made fun of her hair because she's losing her hair, and she's got alopecia, right? So her hair's falling out. So after he made fun of her, while on the air, Will Smith walks on stage. Like, this is impromptu. Like, he just walks on stage, and I think he either slapped or punched him in the face. And then the camera goes back to him, and he shouts at Chris Rock and says, "Keep my wife's name out of your bleep mouth." And he said it twice. Now, those of us who are in, those of you who are watching live, I think it was bleeped out, or like it was all muted. But later, Will Smith apologized to the Academy, and he won Best Actor for Best Actor, his first, but he did not apologize to Chris Rock. And yeah, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which organizes the Oscars, tweeted at that moment, which tweeting is, I don't know what that means, but it says they do not condone violence of any form. Okay? And yeah, like Chris Rock played it really well. He got punched in the face or slapped in the face. And then right after, he said to the audience, that was the greatest night. This was the greatest night in the history of television. And he has not commented any further on what happened. And can you imagine what the reactions of everyone watching was? Right? They all reacted to the incident. Like even filmmaker David Furnish right away went to his sons to tell his sons, don't hit anyone under any circumstance. There was like other people who defended Will Smith, saying he was, standing up for his wife. Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, tweeted, "This is how we do it," right? That's how we do it. And other members of the film industry criticized Will Smith, with The Last Samurai producer Marshall Herskovitz calling on the Academy to take disciplinary action against him. And even Star Wars actor Mark Hamill calling it the ugliest Oscar moment ever. And, it's quite interesting because Kathy Griffin, which I'm not too fond of, she's also a comedian, but, she's a comedian, but, we can hate or like someone as a comedian. But she made a great point saying, now you got to think about the safety of comedy performers, right? It's not a very good practice to get someone to walk up on stage and physically assault a comedian, because then now all comedians have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters, right? So it's kind of crazy, the precedent that's being set here. And for me too, I'm just like, wow, that's really, really kind of crazy. And I hope there is something that comes out of it where even there's an arrest or something along that line. Because, if someone talks bad about your wife of course you're going to be upset, but do we think, when we talk about like domestic violence and hitting your wife or beating your children, whatever it is, right? Or even some women beat their husbands, right? Are we all going to say, well, no, there's a time you can actually beat someone or physically assault them when they say something bad to you? And the answer is no, we should never be accepting violence in this way. Like even the Ukraine war is happening, we're not going to accept that either, right? So we don't want it. We don't want violence at any level, right? Like imagine in church where people, or in politics, don't we get mad about that when people start arguing about politics and then it gets into a fight? It makes no sense to us. So yeah, I am just myself, I am completely against this physical assault, and I do hope that there are measures taken against him so that everyone knows there are consequences even for actors and people who are super famous for doing such things. You know what I mean? Like there has to be consequences. We don't want to be in a world where, because you're famous, there's no consequences for you. So for me, I was, it wasn't, man, I feel really bad for Chris Rock. Yes, he might have gone over the line. Yes, he might have, but I do not think in that situation physical violence would ever be acceptable. So yeah, I'm not too happy about that. Right. So that is the end of the top 3 news. And we're going to get into some sporting news. First and foremost, best news ever in Canada. Yesterday, Canada played Jamaica and we won. Now, why is this so significant? Because it's been 36 years since we've qualified for the World Cup. And yesterday, with that win, we are now in the World Cup in Qatar this summer. So super grateful and thankful. I'm so happy. Canada is officially in the World Cup. And we are number 1 in North America, Central America. We are higher than the US and Mexico right now. So super happy and excited for it. And we did it on home ground. So now I'm like, man, I think we should go watch the next soccer game, which is going to be played in Vancouver. In where? In BC Place Stadium. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to see that one too. But either way, so I'm looking forward to going to maybe watching one of those soccer games too before the World Cup. Either way. In second news, let's go to the NHL. There were a lot of games on the slate, but only 2 that are very important because these are 2 teams that are right above the Vancouver Canucks and we need to catch up to them. Nashville, they kind of seem out of reach, but they defeat the Philadelphia Flyers 5-4, and I think they're like 6-7 points ahead of us, so I don't think we can catch that wild card spot. But Winnipeg also won. They won 2-1 against Arizona, and that means now Winnipeg is 1 point above us. So I'm not super happy about this because now that means we need to jump over another team. So there's like 3-4 teams ahead of us, but luckily 3 of those teams are only within 3 points of striking. That's striking distance. Like Winnipeg's now, we have Canucks have 73 points. Winnipeg has 74, which is not too bad. Dallas has 75, and then the Las Vegas Golden Knights have 76 points. So we're at 73, so within 3 points. So even within one win and like say 1 or 2 teams lose, we're going to be jumping ahead of them also. But it looks like it's a crazy playoff race just to get that last spot. And I'm really, really hoping the Canucks can really pull through on this one. We just had an amazing home run. We played 3 games and we got 5 out of 6 points. So that was great that we did this. But let's see what we can do in the next stage. And also in NBA news, Phoenix Suns, number 1 team in the league, defeat the Philadelphia 76ers. And some people say this is what the final is going to look like. The score is 114-104. Chris Paul, he's back. Again, 19 points, 14 assists. Joel Embiid, one of the top people for the MVP running, is 37 points, 15 rebounds. Washington Wizards. Is it the Wizards? Yeah, the Washington Wizards defeat the Golden State Warriors 123-115. Boston Celtics, they are on a roll. They're doing amazing, both offense and defense. 134-114 over Minnesota Timberwolves. Jason Tatum, 34 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Crazy game with the Lakers. Lakers were up by like 23 points at halftime, and they lost to the New Orleans Pelicans 116-108. LeBron James, 39 points. 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and he twists his ankle really badly in that game, so we'll see what happens there. Dallas Mavericks defeat the Utah Jazz 114-100. Luka Doncic with 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. And also Brooklyn Nets, another big loss here too. Charlotte Hornets defeat them 119-110. LaMelo Ball, 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists. All right? So that is your top 3 news in sports, world news, and of course coronavirus updates for this for today. All right. So what does that mean, guys? We're going to get into a section that we all love. And of course, it is the golden time. And I really hope that all of us can spend this time giving praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. And it's a time we can sing together. We're going to start off with "The Lord is my hope and joy." And that is self-explanatory because He is. And everything I am is because of your love. And then we'll end things off with "Path of Love." So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
Life without the Lord, how could we live? No one could live like that. Without fun, without hope, oh, what kind of life is that? Since the Lord is my hope and joy, I'll always follow. The Lord is my pride. He is the source of my confidence. this feeling in my heart. Could I ever repay the love you've shown me? Your love that cannot be expressed with words alone. Oh Lord, I'm truly thankful for your love. I was anxious, alone, and wandering in darkness. I was not even sure if I could live again. Your love that cannot be expressed with words alone. That precious love of yours has saved my life. Lord, you have always prayed for me. You have comforted my heart. You've led me with the perfect word of truth. Now the time's come, the breath of life from God has entered me. I'm resurrecting higher. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. I will give my everything. My life belongs to you. My Lord, I love you so. Lord, you held on to me with this one promise. Since I've come to life, I'll surely save you. Your love that cannot be expressed with words alone. That precious love of yours has saved my life. We're flying higher than before. Since we passed the darkest time, the history of blessings has begun. Now the time's come, the breath of life from God has entered me. I'm resurrecting higher. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. I will give my everything. My life belongs to you. My Lord, I love you so. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. Until the end, I'll take this path. My heart will never change. My Lord, I love you so. Until the end, I'll take this path. My heart will never change. My Lord, I love you so.
Since I have come, you've come as well. And today we become one with God, one with the Spirit. We unite on this path of love. We must walk now and for all eternity. This path will never change. Hear the word flows without end. Proudly we go on, always for providence. Now and always hope will shine brighter than the sun. This eternal love and hope forever shines bright. Finally, this love of ours fulfilled God's will at last. The Lord our God promises will not fail, they will stand without change, now and for all eternity. Finally, this love of ours fulfilled God's will at last. The Lord our God promises will not fail, they will stand without change, now and for all eternity. Since I have come, you've come as well. And today we become one with God, one with the Spirit. We unite on this path of love. We must walk now and for all
That is The Path of Love. What a great song. I know that some people use that song for their marriage, right? For their blessing when they did a ceremony. So that is amazing. Who was the one that told me they did it for the marriage? Oh, it was Jervine. Yeah, over there in the Philippines. He said that that was his song for his wedding. So whenever I think about this song, as weird as this sounds, I'm not saying that this belongs to them, but whenever I hear this song, I'm just like, wow, that's Jervine's wedding song, right? But what kind of image would you want when you hear this song? And what image wouldn't be better, especially in this history, than a wedding, right? So there's the path of love. Before that, one of my favorite songs right now is Everything I Am Is Because of Your Love. And of course, the Lord is my hope and joy. Okay, so let's get into the word study for today. And of course, every single Tuesday we go into the Bible stories. And this week's message is a little bit more different because there isn't like a specific story that we're taking out. Because, Sunseem did talk about looking at the story of Noah or Moses or Joseph or whatnot. And the point that Sunseem was trying to prove is God will be with those, right, who do his will, right, or who are fulfilling the purpose, regardless of how many people there are, right? And that brings up a really good question when it comes to, well, does it really make sense? Is it really efficient that you're only going to work with, like, say, one family? Like, at the time of Noah, only 8 people were saved. So it's kind of like, well, God, well, I understand they're the only ones who want to do your will, but don't you think the history of God would, like, run, like, even bigger than it is now if you kind of did it a little bit bigger? Right? And, the question might come up to us is, does it seem efficient? But what I'm going to do is first going to go over, like, yeah, it's so true. Like, in the very beginning, how much does God care about his purpose? It's the only thing on his mind that he only cares about those who are actually fulfilling it, even if it's only just one person. Right? Even if it's only just one person. So when we start off in this week's this week's message, we talked about Noah. Sunday talked about Noah first, right? And we look at Noah. Noah is the person that God used, okay? And then God is basically using him. Why? Oh, because there's a flood coming. Why is there a flood coming? Oh, because of the people who have turned away from God and they've become, basically if you look at Genesis chapter 6, it says every inclination of their hearts was evil all the time. Okay, so when you look at that, you're like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, does it? And the answer is, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, why would you even want to, like, the central figure, what is the purpose of this central figure anyways? You know what I mean? Like, this world was wicked anyways. So, like, what was the purpose of using this one figure and working through this one person, of course? And we know that God needs to begin his history with a foundation. Like, he needs a foundation first that must be set rock solid, that's unshakable first before he can build upon it, right? So it's even kind of like, even now I'm doing investing. I need to be rock solid in my knowledge, rock solid in understanding what I'm investing into before I actually invest, or I'm going to be doing something that's nonsense. Like, oh, is this really the right thing to do? And I'm always going to waver. And what's going to happen is when things don't go well, I'm going to, like, just panic sell or do something that might not be the right thing to do, right? So when you look at the time of Noah is the story right after Adam and Eve. So the result of the fall was the multiplication. It's about the fall. We know what the fall is. It's about reproduction. What's the reproduction of? Reproduction of wickedness. And it led to the point that even not even 6 chapters, because you're looking at Adam and Eve in chapter 3, right? That's like 3 chapters later. All of a sudden, the whole world is wicked, right? After 3 chapters, which is 1,600 years. But still, it's like, man, every inclination of their hearts was wicked all the time. And if God wanted to begin this history, remember, what is the history? What is the purpose? Always keep the purpose in mind, meaning he wants to make the counterparts of love. But in order to make the counterpart of love, you need a strong foundation that starts in the Old Testament time. Of course, it started off really bad with Adam and Eve, but he needs to restart again. And of course, what happens is the flood comes in and he restarts with Noah. Right? How does he restart? He restarts with the people who truly, truly believe and will follow him no matter what. Even to the point people ridicules Noah for building an ark and telling people that there is going to be a flood. That's not an easy thing to do. It takes absolute faith. So he started off with that one person, but of course there was a problem with his son Ham, and then there's another 400 years of silence, and God restarts again with Abraham, who was an idol worshiper. Now, the one thing we do need to know is, of course he was an idol worshiper, because the religion of God hadn't even started yet, really, right? There was no one to pass it on. But through this idol worshiper, Abraham, God had to find someone who was so strong in idol worship, because he knew that if that person turns to me, then how strong will they believe in me, right? So start off with, once again, with Abraham, starting the foundation once again. And we know that in when Sunstein talks about Abraham being the father of faith, is because he was the one that fulfilled all and restored the mistakes that happened at the time of Adam and Noah. Remember, time of Adam, it was the leader, the central figure that made the mistake. And at the time of Noah, Noah did well as the central figure, but his son went against him, which means that's a mistake from the followers. At the time of Abraham, both were restored, right? And that's why Abraham was a central figure, believed and did absolutely what God wanted. And his son Isaac, too, did absolute, right? How? Even when it came to being sacrificed, he was okay with it, right? So what we see is there's a restoration of the leader and the follower, the central figure, and those that are following. The two became one. And this is where the foundation actually begins. And this is why when you look at all over the New Testament, Jesus is, whenever Jesus talks about who is he the God, God is the God of who? Right? And in the New Testament, when Jesus always talks about it, like if you look at Matthew chapter 8, verse 11, Jesus says, I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their place at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, right? So he starts with them, saying that it starts with them. And then Matthew 22:32 says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He's not the God of the living, not the God of the dead, but the living. Right? So who are the living, the ones that are spiritually alive, where history began? And that's why they call them the patriarchs, right? The patriarchs are the ones the ones that are like the elders of this history, is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he starts with them. And this is why Jesus never mentions Noah, never mentions Adam. He only talks about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is the beginning of that history. Now, how many people is Abraham? It's Abraham and his immediate family only, right? So it's a very, very small group of people. And there's no one else that believes in this God, because Abraham is basically the first. So God is working only through Abraham. And you're like, wow, this is so crazy, because 2,000 years after, there's so many people that came by, but God's only using Abraham and his family, right? And then it goes to Isaac, and then it goes to Jacob. And it's all the entire beginning of this religious history is only about one family. That's all it is. Even when you go to Joseph, Joseph is one of Jacob's 12 children. It starts with one family, right? And Joseph, he's the one that saves the nation of Israel. But did he really save the nation? And the answer is no. He actually just saved his own family, if you think about it, right? So think about this. Joseph was sold off into slavery, becomes a prime minister of Egypt, and then when the famine comes in, he invites his family to live in, was it Goshen, right? That he invites his family. It wasn't even all of Israel, so you can't even say Israel yet, because the nation hasn't even been made at this moment. So Joseph essentially just saved his family. So it's kind of only like, well, God, you're only saving one family. And then, of course, 400 years of slavery after, and then Moses comes and saves not Israel, not the nation of Israel. He saved Hebrews, right? Hebrews are all like anyone. It's a mixed group of people that were living at that time as slaves. So they weren't just from Israel's family. They're not just from Jacob. But anyone who believed in Moses would actually eventually be able to leave Egypt. Right? So can you imagine how many other people besides the Jews, besides Israel, right? Those 12 families that began to grow, how many other people were there? You can't go from I think there's 600,000 men that left, I believe, right? 600,000 men, and then not including women and children, that left Egypt. You can't get to that from 400 years. You're not going to go from one family of Jacob, Jacob's family with 12 sons of Israel, his 12 sons, and then those 12 sons are not going to go from that family unto 600,000 just men in 400 years, right? We know that there's a lot of other people that followed Moses too. right? So he's saving those people. So it's kind of interesting because from here it begins to grow more and more, and then from Moses they finally get the promised land. Moses to Joshua, they get their promised land, and from there they begin to build their nation, right? So you're seeing that from the time of Adam to Moses, right, all the way up to Joshua is roughly like, how many years is that? That's like 400, 500. We're probably looking like 500 years, 550 maybe, because you have 400 years of slavery. So that takes up 400 years there, and that's before Moses. But even before that, it was just Abraham, and then Abraham's son, and then Isaac to Jacob, Jacob to Joseph, and then 400 years. So if you even look at that, and the time that they actually lived, and they're overlapping each other, you might have an extra 100 years in there, right? So it might be actually like 400 to 500 years before they actually became a nation. So when we understand what the message is saying, that God's heart solely thinks about the purpose, it actually looks so tiny. But then when you look at it, how it ended up by the end when Jesus came, it was huge. It's such a big thing for God because that starting point, right? It has to start well or you're going to have a shaking history. Israel, the Old Testament, I talked about this before, guys, a long time ago, is the Old Testament is basically how physical Israel actually came about. That's all it really is. If you think about it, it's just about that. It started off with Abraham. Abraham has his son Isaac. Isaac had the twins, Jacob and Esau. Jacob has his 12 sons. And then, Joseph becomes a prime minister of Egypt, and the family moves over there. And then it begins to grow in slavery in Egypt for 400 years. And then 600,000 people left with Moses, right? And then they parted the Red Sea. They wandered in the desert for 40 years. And then Joshua came, right? And then even when Joshua comes, they're fighting again, even more, to get their land. They finally get their land, and what happens? These people make a nation, because you can't make a nation without land. You need a place to say, this is our country. Then you know it's a nation. So all the way from Abraham up to Joshua was just getting their land, right? And from Joshua, it started the time of the time of judges. And once they got the land of Canaan, there were lots, they had to stabilize the land, and tons of people were trying to get their land back. Remember what happened was there's 31 tribes living in Israel. Then Israel went to destroy all of them to take their land. But one of the problems was they didn't destroy everyone. So there was always these people attacking because the land was, really fertile. So now the time of judges was to stabilize the land, to say, now this is officially ours. We're going to set up borders. And then, of course, the last of the judges, which is the first of the prophets, was Samuel. Now, the prophet Samuel is very interesting because he's the one that began the history of kings, which was King Saul, right? So once you establish the land, now you have a kingdom and you need a king. So it comes Saul, David, and Solomon, and it begins the kind of like the reign of the kingdom of Israel. And then, of course, after the unified kingdom, it splits into northern Israel and southern Judah. And, of course, that goes on for like another 350 years, right? 350 years, I believe. So almost 400 years. And then, of course, it is the last, you have like the Babylonian captivity. The land's taken away. Well, not taken away. They're just conquered and oppressed by the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, and then Jesus comes, right? So when you look at the Old Testament time, it's very interesting that you're going to see that the entire Old Testament time was remember, it's a physical time. Because the Spirit died at the time of Adam, it was all about physical rules. And that's why, because it was such a physical time, it was about establishing physical Israel, the chosen people, the chosen nation, establish them, the churches, the synagogues, establishing the Jewish religion, Judaism, right? So that everything could be prepared for the next spiritual time, which is Jesus, right? So what's essentially supposed to happen is Adam commits the fall, the Spirit dies, but God needs to establish the nation. By the time from Abraham all the way to Malachi, what happens is the religion begins to form. Judaism begins to form. People begin to understand the institution of Judaism, how to live as a proper Jew, how to live the life properly, right? And from that point on, what happens next is once everything is set, now everyone knows the laws, everyone knows what rules they should follow, everyone should be believing in God, and Israel was they set that foundation that even when it came to the time of Jesus, how set was their foundation? It was actually a little bit too strong that they rejected Jesus, and they only talked about laws and rules instead of this, like leading by the Spirit, right? So after that foundation, physical foundation was set, on top of that physical foundation, Jesus comes to set the spiritual foundation, which was obviously rejected, and then that brought about a branch of Judaism that became Christianity, right? So when we understand this is, yes, it does start with a few people, but we have to understand how important those few people are. That you got to think about this. More important than grabbing everyone is finding the strong, setting the condition, building the foundation so that it can be strong later, right? Look at how Jesus did it. Jesus did it too, where the foundation was set, and then for the first 100, 200, 300, 400 years, there was persecution, but people were so absolute in their faith, they're willing to die for Jesus. So then that spiritual condition is set on top of the physical one. Right? So now that people understood they came from Judaism, they understood how the church works, and they're able to build the new structure of Catholicism, right? Which eventually led into Protestantism. And then now we have that physical foundation where even look at Christianity today, cathedrals and churches everywhere, right? People understand the rules of Christianity. And now that the physical and spiritual is set, it leads into the final stage, which is right now, which is what? Which is both of them come together, which is we be spiritual and physical. We're not going to just think it and have faith. We're going to absolutely put it into action and change ourselves. And that is the complete Testament time. Everything in the Old Testament was needed. Everything in the New Testament was needed. And as weird as it sounds, that small, working on just Noah, just Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, this small family that turns into a bigger family that eventually turns into a nation, set the condition for Christianity to grow and set the spiritual condition. And Christianity set that condition of faith so that when the Lord's second coming comes, when the complete testament comes, that we are going to have that absolute faith on top of the physical structure and organization that was built at the time of the Old Testament time. Everything was absolutely needed. And if you look at it right now, nothing is possible without the Old Testament and New Testament, which all started off with one small seed. The Jews rejected Jesus and his apostles. Small seed, very few people. God only worked through them. The key point is, regardless of how many numbers of people there were, regardless of the numbers of people, that if God is working with you, with that small group, it will work out. It is 100% guaranteed. Through Abraham, his family, small group of people, but because God was working with them, because they're fulfilling the purpose, it will absolutely be fulfilled. It's a matter of who's going to be there, right? When Jesus came, absolutely fulfilled. When Martin Luther came, such a small group, because God was with them against the Catholic Church, absolutely fulfilled. And today, it has to strengthen your heart to understand that regardless of how small, regardless of how many people are against us, regardless of all those things happening, we have to understand, regardless, it's going to happen. Because God is with us and we're filling the purpose of creation, if God is with us, it is a guaranteed it's going to work no matter what. And all you need to do is look at history and you'll see that, wow, no matter how small it was, because God was with them, it absolutely was fulfilled. Okay, so that is the Bible kind of history timeline that we looked at today according to this week's script, this week's message. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, which means now that word study is done, we're going to go into the song of choice for today. Of course, every Tuesday is Korean Tuesdays, and I'm going to choose a song from a Korean artist from way long ago. I bought her first album in 2002. Very famous singer and rapper. Her name is Yoon Mi-dae, and they call her Tasha or T. and this song is called Memories. And this is like the song I heard from her album she gave, and she's actually half black and half Korean. So father's from Texas, African American, and the mother is Korean. And man, she is so good. I remember listening to her is like, okay, she's good enough to be even in America. But either way, everyone please welcome Yoonmi-rae, or T, Tasha, and this song is called Memories.
If I fall 2 times, I come back on my third. 절대로 포기 않지, and that's my word. If I fall 5 times, I come harder on my 6. 조금만 더 가면 돼, 포기 않지 난 아직. If I'm knocked 7 times, I come back on my 8. 7,008기 내 인생 끝까지 가볼래. Now knowledge of self through the pain in this world. 난 절대로 포기 않지, and that's my word.
All the memories of hate and the lies. Don't you know eventually we pay the price? All the hopes and the dreams will survive. Reunite, we got to keep our faith alive. Oh.
지금 21살의 어린아이로 바깥 세계로 시기와 배신 그리고 검은 속길의 유혹 일찍부터 나쁜 계기로 나의 어린 시절 순수함은 사라지고 또 my hopes and dreams are gone. 이것을 벗어나고 싶은 욕망은 물이쳐 눈물이 되어 흘러 그냥 흘려 집 옥상으로 올라가 소리 질러 미친 듯이 하지만 매 아래는 내게 혼자라는 비정한 말로 돌아와 빗소로 날아와 멍하니 밑을 내려다봐 갑자기 날고 싶은 생각이 나 자유를 향해 순수를 위해 어지러운 세상을 위해 나의 소중한 시절을 찾아 저 높은 우주에 다시는 뒤를 돌아보지 않아 그냥 끝까지 잃어버린 기억 속에 찾아가 또래 친구와 같이 놀고 싶어 오직 바라는 것은 넓은 동산에 누워 한가히 하늘을 바라보는 것.
All the memories of hate and the lies. Don't you know eventually we'll pay the price? All my hopes and dreams, they seem so far away. I'ma sing a song and pray for better days.
Just a state of mind, yeah. It's just a state of mind, yeah. It's just a state of mind, yeah. 그너진 전기 꼭꼭 얼은 내 방구석에 내 비계를 꼭 껴안고 눈물을 흘렸던 내 20번째 생에 난 간절히 기도했지. 신은 어딨냐고 왜냐고 책임지지 못할 날 왜 땅에 보냈냐고 가파른 험한 내 인생이 사는 너무도 높고 아무리 올라가도 끝은 보이지 않고 막다른 골목길에 길을 잃은 나의 뒤에 그림자 맞춰 지쳐 I take a step or slower 모든 게 난 지겨워 모두의 미소도 무서워 But let go my bad dreams that ride me like a Viking 이대로 포기하기 너무 일러 rising 불을 걷다 차고 얼어맞아 봐줘야 win 엄마의 얼굴을 바라봐줘 별들을 무심코 똑딱거리는 소침의 바늘을 거꾸로 돌려 이제 달려나가줘 앞으로
All the memories of hate and the lies. Don't you know eventually we'll pay the price? All the hopes and the dreams will survive. Reunite, we got to keep our faith alive.
So there you have it, my whole life with all these memories. I'm trying to figure out how to set all of my pain free. Sometimes I wish that I could turn the hands of time back so I could rewrite the wrong and put my life back on the right track. 되찾고 싶어 잊어버린 나의 나에게 난 할래 끝까지 나의 삶을 찾아갈래. If I'm knocked 7 times I come back on my 8. 7,008기 내 인생 끝까지 가볼래. Life goes on. Yeah. It's just a state of mind.
And that is Yoonmi-rae, or T, and that song is called Memories. And I believe I bought this album in 2002, I think, and that's the first hip hop album. No, it's the second hip hop album I bought in like Korean music. The first album that I've ever heard was what were they called? They're called Jinyu Shan. Yeah, I listened to them first. They're okay, and they're very Korean style hip hop. But when I heard her, Yoon Mi-rae or T, I was like, man, she is so good. And then of course later I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like half American. I was like, oh, no wonder she has like more influence from the American side. But man, that song is really good. She does the singing and the rapping, and she's amazing. All right. So let's get into the final segment for today. And of course on Tuesdays I do thoughts of the week. And this is a very interesting one, because the reason why I came up with this thoughts of the week is because I've been feeling a ton of FOMO lately. Feeling of missing out, right? Or in America, in Providence it'd be like not FOMO, it'd be like feeling of being left out, like FOLO, right? Feeling of left out, feeling of being left out, FOBLO, or whatever it is, right? So I was sitting there like going, wow, this is really, really interesting how, because I'm doing a lot of investment right now, getting into NFTs and all these other different things. And I was thinking to myself like, wow, this is really, really interesting. So I was looking at all the different things that I was doing. And of course, new projects keep popping up. And, I made a mistake before where, just because I got onto the whitelist or whatever it is, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should just get it because I'm going to make money or whatever it is. And what happens is all these new projects come out and I keep looking and I see some of them. I was like, I could have gotten it, but I didn't. And then later I see the price jacks up like 20 times. I'm like, no. And then I'm like, no, you know what? I can't miss out on the next one. And what happens is your heart goes through this roller coaster. You go through this anxiety and stuff. You're like, what's going on? I gotta get it. And I was getting like massive FOMO. Right? Like even there's another NFT project coming out tonight. I got on the whitelist and I'm just like, like, why am I so anxious and why am I so nervous about and I'm even to myself as like, well, it's a lot of money. Like, well, why would I want to put it into something that I'm not really fully sure? Like, is this really the thing I want to do? And I was thinking about this. I was like, man, this FOMO is real. But I was like, why is it so much more real when it comes to investment? And it's because it has to do with money, right? That, I could have risked, let's say, $200 and it becomes like $2,000 and goes like 10 times, right? And I'm like, whoa, and the crazy part is that money isn't even mine. I mean, like that, whether it jumps to 2,000 or not, I don't know. But in my head, every time I see me missing these opportunities, I'm like, oh my God, oh my goodness, I should have gotten it. Oh, I shouldn't. And now, because I missed out, but I made decisions not to buy in certain projects. And then I see them just explode. I'm like, oh, I should have bought it. Or, it's so weird for me, but it's because there is this legitimate loss you feel. You see how it works out and how people made a ton of money or whatever else. And you're like, man, I should have. And this whole time I thought to myself, I was like, wow. And the reason why I brought up this thoughts of the week when it comes to the attitude and behavior of brides, right? Because that's what this week's message, when Pastor Joan was talking about it during the SS service, is what is the proper attitude we need to have? And she's like, we need to know the full definition, the detailed definition of what time we're living in right now. And then I was like, yeah, that's so true. And the thing that was kind of not scary, but the thing that I thought true to myself was, man, here I am having this FOMO, but let's just say we miss out on an education. Let's just say we miss out on a Sunday service. Do we have that same FOMO? You know what I mean? I don't think we understand what the loss is. We can't see the loss. When it comes to your spiritual level went down, when you think about that, you can't see it, and sometimes you can't even feel it. So when you miss something, you miss an education, you miss this, you miss a service, you miss a pre-dawn, it's not like we're like, oh my goodness, oh, I have so much FOMO because I missed it, I can't miss the next pre-dawn. But when it comes to something to do with money, we're freaking out and we're nervous. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have FOMO. Should I get this? Oh my gosh, I got to make an informed decision. And the answer is, it's interesting that we don't really fully feel the extent of what we're missing out on. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to the spiritual things, what is our attitude? What is our behavior? Are we really trying not to miss out on miss out on a service, miss out on an education, miss out on a meeting, miss out doing something for Providence? What is our attitude and our behavior as a bride? And I had to think back, I had to step back and look at myself too, is, I'm getting to these investments here and there, is I'm getting massive FOMO, massive FOMO. Like, should I do it? And I end up making mistakes. I really do. And that's something that I think that all of us have to really think about, is, do we really fully understand this history and what we're missing out on? Or kind of like, the difference between like investments and such is, like you see a result right away and then you're like, oh my gosh. But when it comes to spiritual things, you don't see the result right away. It's slow and steady. It takes time for us to really see the difference of, did it work out well or not? And because we don't see it for a long time, it's almost like you don't even recognize it. It's almost like, haven't you guys ever had that in the past when you sin and you just don't want to talk to God about it? But later, eventually it all comes out and then you feel so bad, like, oh, I should have said it first, right? It's almost like when things happen between you and your friends. If you say it right away, if you say sorry right away, then it gets dealt with right away. But then if you don't say anything and then months pass by and then you just hate each other or whatever it is, and then later when things get so bad and then you're like, oh, we should have done this earlier. When you finally make up, you're like, man, we should have done this earlier. We shouldn't have gone through all that crap, for those last 3-4 months. There's a lot of times we regret after we're caught. There's a lot of times we regret after the result comes out and we're like, oh, I knew it was important, but why didn't I do anything about it? And it's kind of the same with spiritual stuff. Spiritual stuff is kind of like a future thing. Imagine you're like, I'm going to go to very extremes. Imagine you make it to the complete testament. You make it to the heaven, but you're like at the very, very outskirts, where that one decision that you didn't do turned you into someone that lives on the outskirts instead of living in. Right? How at that moment you'd be like, oh, I should have done that. Oh, I knew I should have done that. I knew I should. And that's why I was thinking about, what about the attitude and behavior of brides? Do we really see? Do we really feel what we're missing? Do we know that when we skip, when we don't do this or that, when we feel like we shouldn't pray, when we don't pray, when we don't evangelize, when we don't learn how to help each other out, like think about even when it comes to taking care of each other, and then someone you didn't take care of and they eventually leave Providence, then what do you think? You're like, oh, I should have done something. I really should have done something. And then you begin to, and this is where regret comes in. And I do think that we need to live with the attitude and behavior of a bride that does not want to regret in the future, that doesn't want to have that FOMO of like, man, I should have done this. Where, haven't you ever had that in the past, like me as a face star? One time we're buying Sunsteam a present and I didn't buy it. And I forgot to, buy. I was supposed to buy in, but I forgot to give the money and stuff. And when Sunsteam started to bless everyone, for me, I'm just like, man, all I had to do was just pay. I should have done it. And then Sunsteam's blessing all these people. I'm like, I should have been in there, kind of thing, right? And we just have this FOMO. And then later on, we're like, oh man, should I do this or should I not do this? And I think that one of the things that we do need to change as brides of this history is the attitude and behavior of a bride. Oh, I missed pre-dawn. Man, I missed talking. I got to talk to God right now. Right? Oh, I missed service. Oh, God, please. You go to everyone asking them, what the key points? What'd you get? And you read over the message more and more. You repent to God and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it like this, right? Instead of, I missed it, so we'll see. Well, there's always next week. That's a different attitude. That's a different behavior. And should that be the attitude and behavior of brides? That when we miss, oh, well, and we move on? Or should we be, no, God, I can't miss this again? And I'm really, really hoping that we can be like this in the first place. Like we can be like this also, that, when you look at the things that happen in the world, we get so upset by certain things happening because it has to do with money. It has to do with physical things that we can see. But we have to realize these spiritual things are even more consequential than the physical ones. Right? Think about that. Because the mistakes you make spiritually will affect you eternally, where the effects that happen physically only affect you right now in this present moment. And we need to understand is, yes, what are the more important things? What is the attitude behavior I have to have? It has to be much more towards the spiritual than the physical. I'm not saying ignore the physical, but we need to see both sides. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that it's something that all of us can really understand at a higher level too. This is a time that all of us really have to understand at a much, much deeper level what is happening at this time. And when we understand this, we're going to be able to not miss out on things, but always be the ones that say, yes, I'm so glad I did this. I am so happy I did this. Wow, we got blessed. Oh, I'm so happy that I was the one that helped out Sunseam here. I'm so happy that I'm the one that stood up for Sunseam and it wasn't quiet in this time. I'm so happy that, wow, I did this and it all turned out well. I'm so thankful. Like, that's where we need to be going more than anything else, right? And I'm really, really hoping that all of us here too will understand at that level, this is what we really need to do more than anything else, right? And I really hope that with these thoughts of the week too, that we can really think about our life. What is our attitude and behavior as a bride of this time? And are we more getting FOMO or feeling left out from the physical things or from the spiritual things and what we need to change in our attitude and behavior, all right? So pop a comment below if you've experienced that or you've seen that in yourself too, all right? So that is the last segment for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed that on this Fabulous Tuesday podcast. Everyone, have an amazing and awesome day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive.